Hey guys, Chris here from Carolet Miniature Horses. Today is a beautiful spring day, as you can see. The sun is shining. It's warming up quite quickly today. We did, though, have another frost last night, and so these plants behind me were actually inside last night. Most of what you see are tomatoes, and then we have a six-pack of red cabbage, and my blueberries are on the table. So these plants, with the exception of the blueberries, I am going to try to put in the ground today. I've got Sweetheart's morning feed here, and then I've kind of got a lot of little odds and ends to do. We are preparing for our second camping trip of the season. We will be heading to Shenandoah River State Park, so that's exciting. And we actually depart this afternoon, so I've got a lot to do. I'm going to start by feeding Sweetheart, and then I will probably pick the paddocks. And next, I think, would be wise to go ahead and get these tomatoes in the ground. So let me get to it, and I'll try to kind of share with you some of the things I'm doing throughout the day, but it's a busy one, so glad you're here. I've just put Sweetheart in the feedlot. She's eating happily. Snuggles has come over to say hi and to get some water. But I wanted to show you how green everything is getting around the farm these days. So it's now the middle of April, and grasses are really popping. I'm currently in the barnyard, which is still pretty bare on this half. If you've watched our spring videos, we had Clover visiting us for a few weeks, and we kept him on this side where there was very little grass during the daytime because he had previously foundered before coming to us, and we wanted to limit the amount of grass he got. But as you can see on the other side of the barnyard where we had partitioned it off, it is super green and lush. And that same greenness you will see in our ring. I mean, the ring is really turning green. Even the half of the ring where I had been spreading manure earlier in the year is really greening up. And so, you know, spring has sprung here on the farm, and we're monitoring everyone, but so far so good. Everyone's doing well with the amount of grass we have, and they seem to be eating it down and keeping it at a very manageable level for the current 4 minis that we have on the farm. As I was showing you around the ring, I have noticed that someone has come and pulled, I think, every single flower out of my little flower holder here. It's one of our obstacles that we use with the minis. I've sort of been waiting for this day to happen. I'm not totally surprised with these youngsters, but I think what I'll do is I will pick up the flowers now and just go ahead and store them inside for safekeeping. As I'm picking the flowers up, Snuggles has come over to say hi. I suspect this could either have been her handiwork, or who do you think is coming up behind me on the other side? It's Shenanigans. My money is on one of these two. They're young, they're inquisitive, and you know, they're always up to something, these guys. So let me put these flowers away and get to work picking. Truthfully, I'm surprised it's taken them close to 4 weeks to pull the flowers out. It's something I was expecting them to do on day one, and because they didn't, I thought, oh, fantastic, I can just leave my flowers out in the ring. No such luck. Because we do have these young horses who are so playful and just into everything, we do double lock our door. I used to have just a padlock that would just kind of hook here. I never actually locked it. But after someone pulled it off a time or two, I have just switched over to this sturdier clip that they do not seem to be able to remove. So that's a good thing. We don't want anyone getting into where they don't belong. As I'm watching Sweetheart eat her breakfast here, I am reminded by a little update that I'd like to share with you. It's not a for sure known fact, but having watched her closely for the last few weeks, I'm going to say 6 weeks of springtime now. You know, it's middle of April, approaching the end of April. So having really watched her and monitored her cough and her labored breathing that she has had since the day we brought her home, I am leaning more towards the suspicion that it is Heaves that she has, and Heaves is a chronic condition versus, you know, a seasonal or what do they call it, environmental allergy. So again, you know, she still coughs, you know, several times a day, and she still has this mild labored breathing even at rest. And those seem to be more classic symptoms because, again, they're every day that we're noticing this. Those seem to be more classic symptoms of Heaves. So, I mean, she seems comfortable enough. She's not in heavy work, which I think is a good thing for her. But we will still have the vet out here soon for spring shots, and I will talk more to them about if this is Heaves, you know, are there other things that we could be doing or giving her to give her a little more support? But again, she seems comfortable, but I'm not so sure that we're dealing with allergies right now. We are still giving her her daily allergy medicine, and I think that that's going to do nothing but help potentially. But I don't think that an allergy necessarily is the root cause. So a little update on Sweetheart. You know, again, we are suspecting that it's probably Heaves that she has versus allergies. And so if you hear her coughing, you know, apologies, but it does seem to be a chronic condition and one that we're going to have to continue to just monitor and support as best we can. One other thing I'll mention about Heaves. Heaves, if you aren't familiar, is very closely related but not exactly the same as asthma or even COPD. So those are things that we as humans get. We're pretty familiar with those terms. So Heaves is similar in that it is an irritation and sort of like this obstruction of the airway to some degree. But again, it's a chronic condition, and it's something that she will likely have to kind of be saddled with for the rest of her days. And it could be that she has had this for quite some time. Some horses, it is a later onset disease that they pick up, you know, or ailment that they pick up. Some horses, you know, they live with it their whole life. So, you know, she was a rescue. I did adopt her, and it could very well have been that was one of the reasons why she found herself originally sort of, you know, at auction or wherever the rescue found her. You know, it could have been because of this underlying health condition. She's a super, super sweet, kind, gentle horse. And I don't know why else anyone would want to get rid of such a wonderful horse. So I'm so happy to have her. And I'm just going to do my very best to keep her comfortable because she truly is a sweetheart. Whenever I come in and out of my gates, I like to make sure that I latch them back. I've snapped it here. Some people will just put the chain through the little holder, and that does help to secure the gate. However, I have seen on at least one occasion, one of my young horses come up and put their mouth on the chain, and they're just trying to play with it because they're young, right? But I have actually seen Shenanigans chew on the chain and lift it up out of the holder. And so luckily he didn't get out. It was the ring gate, which just led him into the barnyard. But that is one reason why I like to really be careful and cautious and always snap my gate when I come in and out. And that way I don't inadvertently have a loose horse. The blue hay string, you might be wondering, why on earth is your chain tied? Well, I did that because it was a quick fix. We did not have the metal like staples at the time to hold the chain there. And because I have a hot wire on my fence here, if I didn't have the blue hay string, every time I'd be in and out of my gate, my chain would have the tendency to want to hit the hot wire. And between you and me, I don't really want to grab a chain that's sitting on a hot wire. So I have done this little jerry rigging here, and I have tied my chains to the fence so that they don't dangle and hit the hot wire, if you were curious. This past week here on the farm has been very wet and especially windy. And because of that, I have been putting the hay right here at the back of the barn to hopefully provide a little wind break so that it doesn't blow away. A few days ago, I put some hay out, and I'll show you a little scan of the field as I talk about this, but I put a few flakes of hay out like I normally do in the middle of the field. And within a few short minutes, the hay had blown all the way down to the bottom of the field like tumbleweeds. And so I went scampering after the hay. I picked up as much of it as I could, and I put it up here in the run-in in the corners for the horses to eat. But because of the wind, I've had to put the hay up high near the barn so it doesn't blow away. But you can just see now as I'm showing you, this back field is really greening up, and I'll show you a little clip of the front ring. It's even more so. But this little back field that was once pretty brown, I would now say is more green than brown. And it's still not lush grass, but for these little minis, it's plenty. I mentioned a moment ago that the horses had not spent much time in the back field, or so it appeared. And that was because I did not see many piles of manure. As you can see, everyone's very happy grazing out here in the ring. And the ring has really greened up in the last couple of weeks, which makes sense. You know, horses are going to be chasing that lush spring grass, of course. Makes good sense. Smart horses. But another way I can tell where the horses have been spending more time is by really closely looking for the piles of manures. Now, I was just mentioning, using our power of observation, right, can lead us to a lot of knowledge sometimes. However, it's not entirely as simple as that, of course, right? But it does help. Something else I have noticed, though, again, so if I look around, I see all of the manure, like I told you, on the right side of the ring. And that makes me think, oh, they've been grazing there more than behind me on the left side. Now, I have also watched them closely, and I know they do spend a lot of time grazing on the side behind me as well. And through observation, I have also noticed that some of these horses, not all of them, but some of them really have a tendency to want to go to the bathroom where other horses have gone to the bathroom. And so I suspect that some of them walk from one side over to this side to go to the bathroom. And so it's not entirely that they've been grazing here, but horses will also tend to go to the bathroom where they are grazing. So kind of putting those two things together, long story short, I know they've spent more time in this field as opposed to the back field, because this is where I'd say 90% of the manure is. And they're not walking from the back field all the way up here just to go to the bathroom. But again, just kind of using those two different observations, I'm learning a lot about my horses. And I just thought I would share that because sometimes it's really helpful to get a good gauge on your horse's habits. And that way, when something is out of character, it helps you to pick up on it because you have a good sense of what normal is. So again, there are those happy guys. We currently have 4 minis on the farm. Little Clover did go home about a week ago. I was just concerned with the grass that clearly is popping up here, and even in the barnyard. We tried to give him a dry lot, and even in the barnyard, we just had more grass that was popping up, and that left me a little concerned because we did know he had previously foundered, and I just didn't want to take those chances. If he had been able to eat all of the grass down in the barnyard to where it was a true dry lot, just dirt, and we could supplement him with hay, I would have felt much more comfortable. But even after a few weeks of being out in the dry lot during the daytime hours, for extended daytime hours, I'll show you, the dry lot is still pretty yellow, but it still has little tufts of grass that just kept wanting to pop up. And there's so much grass around the edge, the fence line here and along the other sides of the fence, that I just wasn't comfortable because I felt we had too much grass. If he ever really needed to be on a restricted dry lot, I didn't think we'd be able to provide that. I mean, he remained comfortable here the whole time, which was wonderful. He did fine with the amount of grass that we had. But if we had needed to provide him a stricter area, I didn't think that we could reasonably do that. So we did take him home where I know his owners can absolutely provide that for him if and when he needs it. So that's a little update on Clover. We were really happy to have him for a few weeks. He was a lot of fun. He's super, super handy, a really fun guy. But I care a lot. Just wasn't quite the right setup for him right now. To me, there's something very peaceful about watching horses graze. So now that we have the horses settled for the morning and the bulk of the day, the next thing I'm going to focus on is getting these tomato plants and this 1 pack of cabbage into the garden here. I also need to uncover the garden plants from last night. We did have a mild frost. It was not a hard frost, but it was a mild frost, and so we covered everything except for the lettuce. So I haven't yet gone to inspect it. Fingers crossed it fared well. I think it probably did okay because it was, again, just a very light frost, and it was a pretty short-lived frost because it happened really late in the morning hours as opposed to like all night long. So I'm gonna start carrying my tomato plants. I'm getting tongue-tied here. My tomato plants down to the garden, and then I'll work to get them in, like I told you. And then after I finish up in the garden, kind of the next step of the day is starting to get all of our stuff into the camper so that we will be prepared to head off this afternoon. So that's just step 2 and step 3, and after that comes the old cleaning of the house for the house sitter. So again, lots to do, but again, beautiful day to be outside. I've got my sunscreen on. I had to trade in my sweatshirt for my sun shirt and my sweatpants for my leggings, and I don't know if you can see, but I've even got my handy dandy Crocs on. I don't know if you can find them. But I love to garden in Crocs when I'm not out around the horses directly. I really do like to have my Crocs. They really save my feet. So I'm a big proponent of that. And I feel I should also disclose that, yes, I wear socks with my Crocs, especially in the garden. I do so my feet don't get so gosh darn dirty. But you know, when I go out and about and it's warm, no, I don't wear socks in the summer. However, around the farm, you will likely see me with socks on with my Crocs. I am just now carrying our first of 3 trays or flats of tomatoes down to the garden. I counted them this morning, and I think we have around 40 different tomato plants. That's a lot of tomatoes, I know. I don't think we've ever had such a large crop. Because we start things from seed, we do tend to overplant, and then we separate things, and we hate to toss out a plant and not give it a good chance. So some of these plants are a little small, but most of them are looking really hardy, and they're definitely ready to get into the ground. So like I told you, it's about 40 plants. A lot of them are Romas. Those are our favorite for salsas and other sauces and canned tomatoes to use in chili and such throughout the year. And then some of them are paste tomatoes. And then I think we also have a few sandwich style tomatoes that are a little larger. So a lot of tomatoes, a lot of planting, a lot of tending, and a lot of picking to come. So it should be a really good crop of tomatoes this year. Here we have our 3 trays of tomatoes, and forgive my shadow. I wanted to bring your attention though to these 2 trays here. We have put little bamboo skewers in there to help them stand a little stronger and taller. They were getting a little leggy in the house. A lot of that has to do with just the sunlight, and they're a little root bound, some of them. These over here, we repotted up, you could say, and they're standing a little taller and stronger on their own. But the smaller plants that were beginning to fall over a bit, we went ahead and tied up, and that way they have a little more rigidity as they grow taller and stronger themselves. And once they're in the garden, their roots will really expand, and that should help them. They'll also have the sunlight, which will allow them to grow taller kind of upwards. When they were in the house, some of them were beginning to go a little sideways to try to get to the sun. So just a little tip there. We did tie them up with some stakes to help them stand taller. I'm happy to report everything looks really good after being uncovered. You know, again, we're going to leave the hoops here and the clips in place just in case we have to cover everything again. And the buckets, I'm going to even just keep the buckets in place because we might need to cover the plants on the end. I need to go check that one green bucket. It might be there's another plant I have not yet uncovered. But when I uncovered some of them, you could really feel the warmth that had already built under the buckets. And over here at the edge of the garden, we have all sorts of large totes. We used those the other week to cover our lettuce. I don't have enough hoops right now to cover everything with a hoop. The little planter here, the green planter, worked really well. We have a few more metal planters that we need to assemble because I think I'll start using them in the future as well. And then we can just lift all of these things and remove them from the garden when all danger of frost has passed. But yeah, everything did really well. So looking ahead, the next 7 to 10 days should be nice and warm with no need to cover anything. So now that our potatoes are beginning to pop up, I will probably give them another week to really continue popping up through the ground so I can see all of them a little more clearly. And then I'll come back and do some weeding. I don't want to disturb the ground around them just yet. So yeah, I mean, that'll be coming up soon on my gardening to-do list. But really happy to see them because sometimes when things take a long time, we had this with the sugar snaps, you start to wonder, you know, have the potatoes or the seeds rotted in the soil or has something else happened? So it's a good sign that we see a lot of potatoes beginning to pop up. I don't see all of them yet, but I'm sure that there are a few more that are just waiting to pop up. So when we get back from our trip later this weekend, I imagine we'll have a few more. I told you I wanted to check under this last green bucket, and we do have a plant underneath. These are cabbages, I believe. It's a good thing I came back and double checked because this little cabbage, if we had left it under the bucket, it is going to be quite warm this weekend. So if we had just left it underneath the bucket, it could actually have gotten a little too hot. I think temperatures here at the farm are supposed to certainly get into the 70s, if not even approaching 80. So really glad we came to check on it. Now it'll be happy. I'm going to water everything, and then these little plants will be happy in the warm sunshine all weekend long. As I'm in the gardening, I have noticed that the horses have come back from the front ring, into the back little paddock area that we have. And I just want to show you, as I'm walking around the garden, I have to go all the way around the garden to get where I'm trying to go. But I want to show you that although the grass is really good in the front ring, the horses are still choosing to come to the back. And this makes me really happy because one, it means that they are not just constantly gorging themselves on the grass in the front ring. Very good thing. Two, they're coming back here and they are nibbling on the hay, which is a really nice additional forage that they've got now in their system, kind of helping to keep everything regular. And the hay, although has good nutrients in it, it is not as high in the sugars and the carbohydrates as the grass. So it's nice for their systems to be eating the hay because it kind of helps to give a little relief. But as I turn here, you'll see, you know, Shenanigans here is grazing on the hay. And then the third thing I kind of want to bring your attention to is the others are in the barnyard. Sorry, not in the barnyard. They're in the run-in. And that's really nice to see because they're back here utilizing the shade and really taking it easy. And now that they all get along so well, I've seen all four of them in there together. So again, just really good signs. You know, they're coming off the front grass. They're not gorging themselves. They're eating the hay that I put out for them. And they're also hanging out in the shade. So, you know, 3 really good things. I also want to just bring your attention to how beautiful the farm looks right now. We have just done a lot of mowing, the first big mow of the season. And so as I turn, you can see this really pretty green area behind me. This is going to be our next turnout that we're in the process of enclosing. We still have a little bit of fencing to do over here by the corner of the garden and the backyard, but everything looks so nice when it's been mowed. I have used my hand tiller here. Super, super handy little tool to have. I love it. Makes my life so much easier. I used my little hand tiller here to kind of re-till this bed. My husband tilled it a few weeks ago with the big tiller. It's a bit of a behemoth. I'll show it to you here. This old red tiller here that you see, it's quite the antique. It belonged to my great uncle, and it has been gardening for probably over 40 years now. But you know, it fires up and gets the job done. We're so happy to have it. So he does the initial till with the big guy, and then I come back with my little hand tiller and re-till. And I've just kind of grubbed the ground. I like to remove as many weeds as possible. Makes my life a little easier a few weeks down the road. And now it's time to put our purple cabbage into the ground. Because it is only 6 plants, I think I'll just do a single row and then leave it at that. I have just laid my plants out in a nice straight row here. And as I'm getting ready to plant my first little plant, I see a wonderful sign. A little earthworm. Earthworms are great signs for the garden, a sign of healthy soil. So makes me happy. It's the little things, right? Now that I have my cabbage plants planted, I have built a little well of dirt around them. And that is so that when I water them, or when it rains, the water stays contained more around the plant, and that will hopefully, especially into the summer as it gets warmer, that will help to provide more direct watering for the roots. So yeah, just one more little tip there. You know, I do like to do that with a lot of my plants, especially the larger plants. So there you go, a little well of ground built up around the cabbage plants to help hold the water. Gardening can be a little finicky sometimes. Here we have broccoli, and here we have broccoli. The broccoli down here on the left looks fantastic. The other broccoli plants are struggling a bit. Their leaves have turned purple. They're just not thriving. So I'm not really sure if they're gonna really make it to producing or not, but that's how it goes. And that's another reason why we love to overplant, because you just never know what will take and what you might lose. I have officially planted my first tomato here. 39 more tomatoes to go, and I have only laid out one row here so far, and I think this one row has about 12 to 14 in it, so I have a lot of planting to go. I have just finished planting my first row of tomatoes, and it's just taking me so much longer than I had anticipated. So these little tomatoes here that I've not yet planted, they're the smaller ones. I think that they're gonna have to just wait until after we get back from our camping trip. They might even come with us. Last trip we took some plants with us. That way we can, you know, tend to them, make sure they have plenty of water. It's important they don't dry out at this stage, really at any stage, but especially when they're real young and tender. So these, what is it, 6, 12, 18, 24 or so plants, plus a few more for some co-workers over there. I think these guys will have to come with us camping because I am just running out of time and I still have more things I need to do. So I'm gonna have to abort this mission of planting all of our tomatoes and finish up when we get back from our trip. I am kind of tired, guys. Whew. We have just mowed everything for the first time for the season. And I just wanted to give you a little look at how green and lush everything is. You know, this is our front field. It sits in front of the house. We do not put the minis out here because there's just too much grass for them. Back when we had full-size horses, this is primarily where they spent their time. But everything is just so green and so beautiful that I wanted to show you. Thanks for joining me today as I did a little this and a little that in preparation for our second camping trip of the season. We are heading to Shenandoah River State Park. I may have said Stanton River earlier, so if I did, apologies. We've been there before, but this time we are going to Shenandoah River. It's close to Luray, Virginia. We've never been there, so we're excited to have another park that we have to check off our list, our state park list. And we're going to try to make a day trip to visit another park that is day use only that is in that general area. So we'll see. We might even have 2 parks to check off this weekend. But again, thanks for joining us today. You know, we did a little this, a little that. We took care of the ponies first and foremost, and then we did some gardening. You know, I didn't get as much planted as I had hoped. I just forgot how long and time-consuming gardening can be sometimes. Not to mention pretty exhausting. I'm kind of worn out. But, you know, after that, I had some packing in the camper behind me I had to do, just last-minute food items and other, you know, drinks and prep stuff. And sort of the last thing on my list now, and hopefully then a shower, is to head inside and tidy up the house. You know, it's the old changing the sheets and putting new towels and vacuuming and Swiffering the hardwood floors. You know, the house is never cleaner than when we prepare to step away from it, which is lovely because then when you come home, you return home to a clean house. So again, I've probably got another 45 to 60 minutes of work inside, so I need to get to that. And then before long, we'll be heading off. So thanks again for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the hustle and bustle, and we'll hopefully share some pictures in the coming days or weeks from our trip. So yeah, talk to you later. Bye guys.